Hello and welcome to the Fix Your Stupid Brain podcast, where we turn brain rot into brain soil. I'm your host, Garrett Crowder, and in this episode I'll be covering cognitive biases. What are they? What are the most common ones? And how can you avoid any of them, even for ones not covered on today's episode? Let's get into it. As a disclaimer, this podcast is for general information and conversation about mental health topics. It is not medical or psychological advice and is not a substitute for talking to a licensed professional. Everyone's situation is different, so if you're struggling, please reach out to a qualified professional. So, what exactly are cognitive biases? According to simplypsychology.org, cognitive biases are a systematic error in thinking affecting how we process information, perceive others, and make decisions, which can lead to irrational thoughts or judgments. What that means is they are a type of mental shortcut our brains take to make decisions quicker and more efficiently. Now, making decisions quicker is not inherently a bad thing, but that usually means that we will reach an incorrect solution to a potential problem. In this episode, I'll be going over many of the most common cognitive biases and how to recognize when you might be running into a cognitive bias even if you don't know what it is. As always, all the links to my sources will be in the episode's show notes. First, let me start off with a question adapted from the YouTube channel Veritasium. What pattern do the following numbers follow? 2, 4, 8. People that were asked this question could propose their own set of 3 numbers. So people proposed sequences like 16, 32, 64, a power of 2 sequence, or 10, 20, 40. Each consecutive number is double the last. But neither of these were the rule of the original sequence. So people would guess things like 2, 4, 7, or 11, 37, 498. Thinking that any 3 numbers would follow the rule of the original sequence. It wasn't until people said a sequence like 10, 9, 8, which didn't follow the rule of the original sequence, where they finally got it, which was numbers in ascending order. This is confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out and interpret new information that confirms your pre-existing beliefs. To avoid falling for this bias, separate your beliefs from your identity and look for evidence to prove yourself wrong. The availability bias. This is the tendency to estimate the probability of something happening based on how many examples readily come to mind. For example, someone might think that flying is more dangerous than driving because they can think of many plane crashes on the news compared to relatively few car crashes. Yet, the opposite could not be more true. According to NortonLeacox.com, the chances of dying in a plane crash are 1 in 11 million, whereas the chances of dying in a car crash are 1 in 5,000. To overcome availability bias, do your best to seek out more objective and diversified information, be skeptical of why you think that way, use statistical and observe data over anecdotes, and seek opinions of others. The anchoring bias. This is the tendency to be overly influenced by the first piece of information that we hear. For example, at discount clothing stores or outlet malls, we'll have a normal price and a supposed discount price for their items. Say you wanted a nice set of jeans. The normal price was $100 and the supposed discount price was $80. You might think that you're saving 20%, but if those jeans were actually $20, you'd be paying 4 times as much than you otherwise would have. To overcome this, educate yourself about the topic, consider the opposite anchor as if the first piece of information you saw was half its value, and slow down when making decisions. 9 times out of 10, a decision does not have to be made right away. Give yourself some time to think it over and consider all the information. The self-serving bias. This is the tendency to attribute success to our own abilities while attributing failures to external factors. For example, a poker player might think that when they win a hand, it was due to a good bet or a good read of their opponent's hand. Whereas, when they lose a hand, they might think it was due to being unlucky or that the dealer did them dirty. To overcome this, ask yourself what worked, what you could do better, and what was out of your control. Seek feedback from an external perspective and focus on learning from your errors and setting realistic goals. The actor-observer bias. This is the opposite tendency to the self-serving bias, where people attribute their actions to external influences and others' actions to internal influences. For example, you might say that you got the job you have due to luck, and your friend got their job due to their hard work. To overcome this, increase your self-awareness, practice empathy, and avoid jumping to conclusions. The hindsight bias. This is the tendency to perceive past events as more predictable than they actually were. For example, day traders are often asked by outside observers why they didn't buy at the exact bottom of a stock's price move and why they didn't sell at the exact top of the stock's price move. These outside observers are using the hindsight of the price graph as a way of saying, "Oh, I knew it was going to do that, why didn't you?" To overcome this, consider the opposite happening, seek other perspectives, and focus on the decision-making process rather than the outcome. The optimism bias. This is the tendency to overestimate the likelihood of positive events and underestimate the likelihood of negative events happening to you. For example, younger people going out to a vacation destination at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, figuring that they won't catch it or die from it. Some of the young people who did so caught the virus and died from it, falling victim to the optimism bias. To overcome this, balance your thinking with optimism and pessimism, test your assumptions and track how they turn out, and accept and learn from your and others' failures. The status quo bias. This is the tendency to prefer your current state over changing, even when changing offers clear benefits. For example, someone who only eats fast food instead of switching to homemade meals that are healthier and cheaper. To overcome this, visualize future regret by asking, would I regret not acting on this in 5 years? And making incremental changes, making small changes instead of going for the full enchilada all at once. The survivorship bias. This is the tendency to concentrate on things that survived a process while overlooking the vast majority of failures. In the most famous example of this, during World War II, the military noticed planes returning from combat had significant damage done to the wings, the body, and the tail gunner. So, they added armor to those areas, only for the same percentage of planes to return from combat as already did. When they hired a mathematician, he told them to put as little armor on the places that were being hit and to reinforce everywhere else. That vastly reduced the number of planes that were lost in combat. To overcome survivorship bias, ask what or who is missing from the data you've collected. Seek out failure deliberately as to find out where to learn from, and compare against a complete sample, not just a handful of examples. Finally, the Dunning-Kruger effect. This is the tendency of people with a low ability to overestimate their ability due to a lack of skill. For example, me, as I'm hosting this podcast right now. I might think that I know more about the topics I'm covering than I think that I do. But I hope to counteract this by saying that I'm not an expert, that I have done a lot of research, and that all of my sources for the information I'm providing are in the show notes. So how can we overcome the Dunning-Kruger effect? One thing we can do is to shift our mindset from I know to I'm learning. Ask and listen to feedback, and remember that confidence does not equal competence. Now, keep in mind that this is nowhere near a comprehensive list of every known cognitive bias. These are just the most common ones. And again, all my sources are in the show notes. But what about cognitive biases that I haven't covered? Well, that is where recognizing that you might have fallen for a cognitive bias comes in. First, curiously observe your thoughts. When you think about something strongly, get into the habit of asking where that thought came from. Second, document your decisions. Write down a decision you made, why you made that decision, and what you'll predict will happen once the decision has solidified. Third, imagine from a third person's perspective. When evaluating your decisions, ask yourself things like, what advice would I give to my best friend if they were in this exact situation? Or imagine it's a year from now and this decision turned out to be a mistake. What would be the most likely reason? Finally, review your decisions. If you found yourself jumping to conclusions or acting without much thinking or reasoning behind it, then you probably fell for a cognitive bias. That way, going forward, you can change your future actions for similar situations. That is all I have for you on this episode of Fix Your Stupid Brain. If you like what you heard here, don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. I've been your host, Garrett Crowder, and don't forget to have a good one.